Hello, you're watching TVP World News. I'm Jan Ślewiński. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has arrived in Washington, D.C. for high-level talks with U.S. leader Donald Trump, with a broader summit with European leaders expected to follow shortly thereafter. Today we'll be providing you with ongoing coverage of what may be a pivotal moment for the Ukraine peace process. And ahead of today's talks, U.S. President Donald Trump previewed the message he will deliver to his White House guests. Taking to social media, Trump said that Zelenskyy must agree to some of Russia's conditions for the war to end. The US president listed two of Moscow's demands. Ukraine cedes Crimea and agreed to never join NATO. European leaders visiting the White House with Zelenskyy are concerned the meeting will amount to Trump pressuring the Ukrainian leader to accept Putin's conditions put forth during the Alaska summit last week. At the same time, they hope to glean more information from Trump on what Russia might concede as part of a peace deal. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy said that both he and Donald Trump share a strong desire to end the war quickly and to bring about a lasting peace. At the same time, Zelenskyy stated on social media that he is confident that the joint strength of Europe, the United States and Ukraine will force Russia into accepting what he called a real peace.
We all share a strong desire to end this war quickly and reliably. And peace must be lasting, not like it was years ago when Ukraine was forced to give up Crimea and part of our east, part of Donbass, and Putin simply used it as a springboard for a new attack, or when Ukraine was given so-called security guarantees in 1994, but they didn't work. Russia must end this war, which it itself started, and I hope that our joint strength with America, with our European friends, will force Russia into real peace.
Ahead of his trip to the United States, French President Emmanuel Macron emphasized that his goal in Washington, D.C. is to present a united front between Ukrainians and Europeans. Moreover, Macron added that Ukraine's territorial integrity must be respected and that the country must be represented in any talks about its future.
Ultimately, our desire is to present a united front between Europeans and Ukrainians at this time of conflict resolution, by reaffirming who is on the side of peace, who is on the side of international law, but above all, how to collectively ensure that the international order is respected and that our security is protected, because the security of Europeans and of France is at stake. Remember that there can be no territorial discussion about Ukraine without Ukraine's legitimate, democratically elected leaders. No discussion about Ukraine without Ukrainians, but by the same token, no discussion about European security without them.
After the summit in Alaska, Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski weighed in on the reports of new security guarantees for Ukraine. In a post on social media, he reiterated that Russia had already formally guaranteed Ukraine's independence over 20 years ago, which did not prevent Putin from using military force against Kiev.
For the record, since 1994, Ukraine already has guarantees of independence and inviolability of borders, also from Russia. In addition, on the 22nd of April 2004, Vladimir Putin solemnly ratified the treaty on the Russian-Ukrainian border. Suffice to respect them, and the war is over.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said on Sunday he is hopeful for a breakthrough. Rubio said he saw enough movement to justify a large meeting involving not just Zelenskyy, but other European leaders.
Our goal here is to have a peace agreement to end this war, okay? And obviously we felt, and I agreed, that there was enough progress, not a lot of progress, but enough progress made in those talks to allow us to move to the next phase. If not, we wouldn't be having Zelenskyy flying all the way over here. We wouldn't be having all the Europeans coming all the way over here. Now understand, and take with a grain of salt, I'm not saying we're on the verge of a peace deal, but I am saying that we saw movement, enough movement to justify a follow-up meeting with Zelenskyy and the Europeans, enough movement for us to dedicate even more time to this.
The war is not going to end exactly how Russia wants it to end. This is what Tomasz Nodź, a senior research fellow for nuclear, space and missile defense at GlobeSec, said in a recent interview with TVP World. in which he discussed US President Donald Trump's efforts to end the war in Ukraine.
Up until now, the Trump administration was pretty hesitant to talk about burden sharing when it comes to security guarantees. This is probably the first formal mentioning of that, and the fact that it's happening in a very formal manner, it should be encouraging, because that's a sign that the US is not really moving completely out of the process. Obviously, it's tailoring the process to its own and the way how they would prefer to have it, which is not exactly maybe how Ukraine wants to see it and how Europe wants to see it. But it's certainly a positive side that US is committed to continuing the process and also taking some kind of stakeholdership role in this process. I don't think that we actually know how this and when this war is going to end. We know what the Russian maximalistic objectives are. They are not really surprising, what we hear in Alaska. But obviously, at this point, we know almost with certainty that the war is not going to end exactly in terms how Russia would want it to end.
Just hours before Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy's meeting with Donald Trump, Russia launched a wave of missile attacks against Ukrainian cities. One of the targets was Kharkiv, where at least 4 people were killed and at least 17 were wounded. According to Kharkiv Mayor Ihor Terechov, around 11 p.m. local time, a missile struck a residential building in the industrial district of the city. According to the governor of the Kharkiv region, the strike damaged about a dozen apartment buildings and 5 vehicles parked nearby. Overnight, explosions were also heard in Sumy. According to regional governor Oleg Krychorov, a missile struck near a city school, but so far no casualties were reported. Russia also struck the border village of Nova Sloboda, wounding a middle-aged woman and damaging 10 houses. Furthermore, a drone strike targeted the village of Myopilya, injuring 1 person. Slovakia has suspended official military assistance to Ukraine, yet the country's arms exports have skyrocketed, growing tenfold since the beginning of the Russian invasion. Even though Prime Minister Robert Fico, who opposes Kyiv's NATO membership and EU sanctions against Russia, promised not a single bullet would be delivered to Ukraine, Slovakia's private and state-owned arms companies are sending arms to the front line. The country's government, however, said the booming arms industry isn't undermining Fico's political pledge on aid to Ukraine. According to the country's defense minister, this is not support for the war, but support for trade. Estimates say that in 2023 alone, Slovakia exported 1.15 billion euros worth of arms, surpassing neighboring Czech Republic, a country with a much larger defense industry. While the world awaits a peace deal for Ukraine, the hybrid war against NATO continues. After the Telegraph reported on mysterious flights between Belarus and Libya, Poland has noted a sharp rise in illegal attempts of migrants trying to cross its borders. Sonia Gatabishchan reports.
Poland's frontiers are under increased pressure. The Polish border guard noted a high number of attempts to illegally cross the Polish-Belarusian border over the weekend.
The long weekend is very busy. The Podwashia Border Guard Department registered over 230 attempts of illegal border crossings at the Polish-Belarusian border on Saturday.
The development comes after an increase in flights between Libya and Belarus. According to Britain's The Telegraph, it could indicate the Russian President Vladimir Putin and his Belarusian ally and counterpart Alexander Lukashenko are launching a new wave of illegal migrants at Europe's eastern border.
What is interesting, since the beginning of this year, we see the increasing number of official contacts between the regime of Khalifa Haftar in Libya and the regime of Alexander Lukashenko.
In May, there were reportedly 2 flights by Belarus state-run Belavia Airlines between Minsk and Benghazi, whereas in June and July the number increased to 4 and 5 respectively. Commenting on the development, a European Commission official told The Telegraph,
The frequency and nature of these flights, particularly within a short time frame, raise questions about potential coordination or facilitation of irregular migration flows.
According to experts, there could be additional reasons explaining the increased activity between the two countries.
Belarus was a destination where this Libyan military equipment of Russian and Soviet origin was repaired. And probably this increased number of flights from Minsk to Benghazi is related to some arms deals or trainings provided to the militaries. We don't know.
By August 13th, Poland's border guard from the Podlaskie region noted over 19,400 attempts of illegal crossing at the Polish-Belarusian border in 2025. But the frontier is tight.
We have the barrier, physical barrier, and also the electronic system, electronic barrier. Our border is monitoring 24 hours per day. That means that every time, every attempt we can see and quickly react. That's why now we had effectiveness about 98%.
As Poland's border with Belarus is becoming increasingly tight, the Polish border guard suggests that the main transit route for illegal migrants now runs through the Polish-Lithuanian border, where the smuggling of illegal migrants tripled in a year. In response to security considerations, in July, Poland introduced temporary checks on its borders with Lithuania and Germany. For TVP World, I'm Sonia Gatabiszczyn.
Now, the Film Museum in the Polish city of Łódź has opened Poland's first exhibition devoted to one of the country's most beloved children's book characters, namely the Moomins. The Moomins, the door is always open, brings the magical world of these Finnish trolls to life. Our reporter Karolina Szapland has more.
In a valley far away lives a family of spirited Finnish trolls. Kind and nurturing Moomin Mama, brooding and artistic Moomin Papa, and a Moomin troll whose adventures lie at the heart of a series of books by Tove Jansson. Beloved in Poland, these books are 80 years this year.
Buka was such a distinctive character because, as they say, fairy tales have that kind of atmosphere. I always remember how scary music would play when Buka was about to appear. It wasn't that it was scary, but it created such emotions.
For the Film Museum in Łódź, this anniversary has a special significance because it was here in Łódź in the late 70s when the local film studio Semafor produced 78 episodes of what is now a children's cult classic, The Tales of the Moomins. And I asked the museum curator, Zuzanna Woźniak-Kepe, what made that series so distinctive.
The special thing about this animation, the Polish adaptations of the Moomins, was the technique used for this special animation, the half-flat puppet. So it was actually made on a multiplane thing that was, the puppets were put on the glass panels, and it was animated that way, not the usual puppet way.
This exhibition shows that in 2025, Moomins transcend the books and the movies. They are everywhere, from toys to tattoos. The exhibition title, The Door is Always Open, reflects the Moomin philosophy. Whenever somebody new appeared in a Moomin valley, there was always a place for them at the Moomin table. And that's a lesson not just for the kids. For TVP World, I'm Karolina Szapland.
And with this, we conclude this edition of TVP World News. Please stay with us here for more latest news and updates.